Hey guys, this is John from Next Level Games. I'm going to be profiling for you guys today my True Draco Demise deck profile. I like this deck a lot. It's effective, but there's no like crazy combos or like overly complicated moves. It's just really simple and really consistent. So I think it's going to be good, hopefully even after the ban list. And I even talk about some of the cards you can swap in and out if certain cards like Diagram or Terraforming get hit. If you want just a profile, you can skip ahead about a minute because I won't really be explaining everything until after the entire profile has been shown. So yeah, let's get right to it. So here's the complete main deck. It's 40 cards with 2 Masterpiece, 1 Ignis, 1 Majesty Maiden, 3 Dynamite Knight, 1 Maxi, 3 Heritage, and 2 Disciples. We will talk about why we don't play the 3 later on. 3 Diagram and 3 Terraforming, 3 Demise for draw power, an Upstart, 2 Desires, 2 Pot of Duality, Book of Moon, for 1 Forbidden Chalice, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, and a Monarch Stormforth for the spells, and then 3 True King's Return, 2 Apocalypse, 2 Waterfall of Dragon Souls, and 1 Skill Drain. So, we only play the 2 Masterpiece. I know some people play 3, but I don't like drawing 2 on my first turn, especially with all the draw power that you run. You have quite a few cards to keep adding stuff to your hand, plus diagrams. I usually want to search this with diagram last or something like that, and I find like 3 is a little bit cloggy. I know that it is the boss monster of the deck, so it's kind of risky, but you know, having less clogs is, I find, a little bit more ideal. However, I do play the 3 Dynamite. They're the best ones. You don't really have a lot of monsters to work with here, so I think this is the best one because it puts a trap on your field that actually allows you to play on your opponent's turn. So whether it's the Apocalypse, which is pretty useful, or the True King's Return, this is just a little bit better than the other ones in my opinion. The only one that's good going second really is Ignis. This one, when your opponent activates something, it's just like Dynamite, except you set a spell. So usually we're going to put down a Heritage, so if this dies or some other cards get sent to the graveyard, and then you put this down afterwards, that's quite a bit of draw power. So I think the only one that's worth going, searching going second, is usually this one, so it's good to have. I sometimes side it out though, if I know I'm going first, but not all the time, because like I said, we only have a handful of monsters here, so you don't really want to run out too quickly. And then 1 Majesty just for the option to search the Masterpiece if I don't have the diagram. You never know. This card is probably the least valuable of the True Dracos, but every now and then it comes pretty clutch. And the 1 Maxi, I don't really play hand traps because of Demise, but at the worst case, you can just activate Maxi for no reason and Demise and draw as many as you can anyway. So if you draw it going second, you sack them. If you draw it going first and you have Demise in hand, it's not like you're really losing anything in terms of the draw anyway. This still could have been a different card, which is unfortunate, but I think it's worth the risk running right now, just because against Zoo, which is probably the toughest matchup, it's kind of a blowout. So that's why you only play the 8 monsters. Onto the spells. 3 Heritage. This is by far the best one, not just for Ignis to combo off with it, but because it gives you an additional tribute plus a draw. I mean, all you gotta do basically is count to 3. Make sure you get like one of like a monster, a trap, and a spell in the grave, and then activate Heritage. As long as you keep counting the 3 every turn, you should be able to win, because that's just your main draw power. So that's really good. I only play the 2 Disciples. In Pure, it actually is really useful to be able to shuffle stuff back. So you always have like a Masterpiece you can search and tribute summon, because obviously just specialing this back from True King's Return is not quite as ideal, because like you want the tribute summon Masterpiece to have its effect and to have the bonuses from Diagram if it's not tributed with spells. But at the same time, I found that I didn't really want to see 2 of this card either. Seeing 2 Heritage is not the worst thing to go, because you want to see that no matter what, but 2 Disciples, you want to avoid that if you can. And there's so much draw power in this deck that you're gonna come into your doubles like quite often, and like having 3 Disciples is just a little bit too cloggy. I know a lot of lists play the 3rd one, but I don't know. Like when you're resolving your Masterpiece a lot anyway, like you actually do run out of cards to banish. You run out of cards to shuffle away from your grave if you keep banishing them. So this is probably like a little bit less live than the True Draco Heritage, but it's still necessary to play just for recycling. In testing, I have yet to want to bring this up to 3. So personally, I don't really like it. But if the banlist hit to bring Masterpiece to 1 or Diagram to 2 and Terraforming to 2, I would definitely bump this and this up to 3 just for maximum consistency, I think. But I haven't tested that yet, obviously. And then best card of the deck, 3 Diagram and 3 Terraforming. Some people play 2 Terraforming. I have no idea why. I know some people think it's cloggy, but I'd rather risk seeing 2 Diagram than not seeing 1 during a game. So even though you do draw quite a bit, like, I really don't want to be without a Diagram for the turn. So yeah, playing 6 I think is definitely, I don't even see it as a risk, honestly. So I wouldn't cut any of those cards. Like, there's a reason these cards keep getting hit in the OCG, that is. And for draw power, 3 Demise is pretty obvious. I mean, while it's legal, we might as well just abuse the shit out of it. Like, it's so good. 2 Desires. Some people are kind of sketchy about this, especially because I don't run 3 of these. Like, you know, what if you banish all of them? But for me, the +1 is just, you know, I find it's like kind of safe in this deck because you're gonna do a lot of drawing for like with dualities and demise and searching first before you resolve your desires. So you can usually bring out like 1 of each of the pieces you need into play before you desires. So I think it's worth the risk, and then draw power is always really good, maintaining your resources over your opponent. I used to play 3 duality, but it's one of those things where it's like you demise sometimes and draw 2 duality or desires into your second duality, and it's just dead. That's why I don't play the second desires as well. Like, there's a lot of draw power, but I think, like, you know, 7 cards for draw power I think is enough. Plus you still run the opposite art for deck thinning, so I wouldn't really bring these up to 3. I just think that'd be a little bit too cloggy, and it takes away room from some of the tech cards, which are the next 5 cards. So I like it at this ratio. Sometimes the duality I think you can run at 3, but every time I bring it up, I end up just siding out the 3rd one, like, pretty much every game. So, you know, it doesn't seem that useful. And then just for the 5 last spells, 2 Cyclone, just because, you know, I think the only thing that sucks to deal with is a mirror match, because, like, your Masterpiece has a lot of trouble dealing with their Masterpiece, especially if there's a Diagram on board. It's just kind of annoying. So I like having these main decked. And it's still relevant against like Invoked or something like that, just to try to banish the invocation. So they'll get the summon, but at least they don't get the recycling off of it quite as good. Or if people are playing Metal Foes, you can just banish the Metal Foes fusion and get prevent them from getting the draw. So it's still pretty good, but yeah, I find the only real problematic matchup is just a mirror match. Everything else, like, I guess Zeus is pretty hard, but you know, if you get skill drain, or just like, basically if you go first, you should have a pretty good chance against them anyway. So I was thinking of cutting these 2 out. Some people do, and the reason is because when you're destroying your spells and traps, attributing them, you already have spell and trap removal in that sense. So it's like, why do you need extra in the main? But you know, I still like them. They're useful. And then a good tip, you'll notice that all of my tech cards are quick plays. A really good tip to abuse Diagram is if you go Chain Link 1, Diagram to activate, because it doesn't target, you can just activate Cyclone as Chain Link 2 as a target banish, and then assuming they don't negate the Diagram, you can actually just basically when you resolve the chain, you go 2 to banish whatever, and then it stays on field until the end of the chain. So Diagram can actually just destroy the Cyclone. So I like the quick plays a lot because it abuses the Diagram, or it has a chance to abuse the Diagram even more. I mean, some people, you know, they really like just to destroy these guys off of it, which is a good play. Like, you can destroy a card basically to search a card, which is really good, and then draw more off a heritage. But having the option not to destroy your resources and just destroying these guys that we're just going to leave the field for nothing anyway, I think that's a good way to abuse it. So I got the 2 Cyclones. We have the 1 Book of Moon, just because another problem card is the Unbreakable Crystal Wing, or a Beals, which I really hate to deal with because it takes a lot of your resources, and you know, when you only have, realistically, you only have 4 names in here for monsters you can summon, so you don't have a lot of options. So having the Book of Moon, I have an interesting side as well for Crystal Wing. Having the Book of Moon helps. And Chalice, I'd love to bring this to 2, I just don't have room for it, because, you know, it's good against anything and everything pretty much. and the Stormforth because for some reason it's legal, so you might as well abuse it. For traps, the best one is True King's Return because it's you're called the Haunted, and then 2 of these. I don't really like this at 3 so much. I think that like especially if you have no monsters on board, like being able to get one back is like pretty useful. But the Apocalypse, you know, being able to summon off of this and then afterwards destroying with Apocalypse is just a really good combo, and that's why we play 3 Dynamite to really maximize the traps. I do sometimes miss the 3rd one, but I don't think there's anything I'd really cut for the 3rd one until the ban list drops. So if Diagram and Terraforming were hit, or if Stormforth somehow got banned, something like that, I'd probably play the 3rd, but as of right now, I don't really feel the need for it. The attack modifier doesn't really help. Like, it does help sometimes, but most of the time you'll be destroying stuff with card effect anyway, like with the traps or with Masterpiece, so I don't really see the use that much of a modifying attack. The only time is that if there's an Unbreakable Crystal Wing, and you have 2 monsters, you can have Dynamite attack the Crystal Wing, have it gain the attack from this, and then have it, and then Masterpiece can attack safely to destroy it. But then you're still kind of losing like 2 cards in a sense just to get rid of that Crystal Wing, which it's like I said, it's very resource depleting, but it does open up your options a little bit if you happen to have 2 monsters on the field. And then just for the Searcher / draw power, Waterfall. I mean, you know, if there's a board wipe coming, you know, you might as well just like send your worm to the graveyard to draw some more. And it's you send any number of worm types from your hand or face up, and then draw the same number +1. So it's basically like, it's not even a neg by any means, or you just activate to search the Masterpiece or whatever thing you want to summon. So if you have Dynamite to drop a return or maybe an Apocalypse on your turn, and then have this to search the monster after you demise, it's just really bad. Because like Demise, you're going to want to activate as much as you can, and then if you have an empty board, an empty hand and nothing to tribute summon, that can hurt a lot as well. So people like the draw for this, which is really good, but I actually end up searching the monster a lot, just to make it a little bit simpler to run Demise. And then just to sack people, Skill Drain. I mean, it's Skill Drain. You know, if I could run this at 3, I would, so I definitely wouldn't take this out. So now we can go into the extra deck there. As a preface though, I know some people do like rank 8s or rank 6s or something like that in their extra deck on the off chance they summon it, or if they have a tuner, they try to like just put a few tuners in. I don't really mess around with that. Like, I have 3 cherries in the side, and all 15 cards in my extra deck are just targets for cherries. Like, I can't summon any of them, so just a heads up for that. So you're gonna go Mechaba, of course. This is the fusions are really good, as well as Seraphinite, because when they activate Brilliant Fusion or Invocation, then you activate your cherries, and that's a pretty good neg 1 for them. Dryden and Broadbull, just in case you draw 2 against Zodiac. This should be the first one, and then Dryden, but this way you have both. Buster, just to win against ABC. Utopia, because if they bail out your Masterpiece, it's one of the few things that can out it. Decode Talker, take away their advantage. Calamities is actually not that much of a problem card, but if there's a diagram on board, it's sometimes kind of hard to get rid of this guy. And then there's also going to be Infinity, so if they summon Nova or they summon Utopia, you have these. If you're afraid of Alagia, because it can negate, you know, a normal summon or a spell trap, like this actually does come up where this gives you some trouble. And if you have if they have 2 level 4s on the field, just you know, take away the option. As well as Denglong, and then Crystal Wing to stop, especially the Wind Witch combo. You know, having to face this that's unbreakable is, you know, like I said, very resource depleting, as well as the Beals, which in this deck there's not a lot of outs to it. And then I also play a Black Rose Dragon. This is probably the only synchro that, you know, can really stem the tide of the game. Like, especially in Lightsworn, this is like the only way they can beat you, is that you've already put down all your spells and traps, your diagrams on board, you've hit a demise, you have absolutely nothing left except your, you know, your Masterpiece, and then they Black Rose bomb you, and then, you know, if they can out your Masterpiece, you're basically done for the game. So that really sucks. So that card I think was pretty necessary. And then for the last space, I couldn't quite decide. Right now I just run the Dark Law, because if there's a Dark Law on board, and then it's kind of hard to combo off in a sense, because like all your spells and traps go to the banish zone, and that's pretty annoying. So you have to like basically tribute something, lose that because it gets banished, and then attack into this first. So, and that's if they don't have a Ghost Neos Honest to stop you. So that's kind of annoying. So I chose this one. But then one other possible target you could have done is Spirit Dragon. I don't really think Blue Eyes does like a lot against True Dracos, but on the off chance, like this is one of the original Cherries targets, so I thought I'd talk about that briefly. But honestly, the only thing that is really problematic is probably the Chaos Max, and that's if you don't have an Apocalypse to have its attack. If you do, then Blue Eyes basically can't out your board anyway. So yeah, those are my main targets. I also was thinking about Minerva because it does get a lot of advantage, but the reason I didn't put it in is because Minerva doesn't even out the Masterpiece. So as much advantage as it gets, like what's the point? Also, I was kind of hoping to make room for an Omega, but in my thought, it's the same thing. Like Omega can't out a Masterpiece, but like for example, like a Decode Talker or can give them enough advantage to out you. Infinity, can like negate something and kind of slow you down. Like these are the cards I think that matter a little bit more. So yeah, so I didn't play Minerva or Omega. So onto the side deck. First things first, Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries is the whole point of the extra deck. I don't normally like to play hand traps going or in Demise decks, but going second is pretty safe. So you can usually, it's pretty easy to resolve this. I've seen some profiles even main this with the Demise, which I think is like a little bit too risky. But going second to potentially have a blowout by banishing one of these guys, I think is definitely worth it. So I wouldn't take those out. And then these used to be magic deflectors. I switched them out for these just for the mirror match. Just a pointer of the Red Lotus. I like it in this deck a lot because the way you respond to your opponent, you usually like destroy spells or traps. Like if you tribute summon for your Masterpiece on their turn with like a True King trap, or if you have like Apocalypse on board as well, like you can usually pop your own spells and traps or tribute them to destroy cards in the field. Plus Masterpiece can destroy cards. So I think the biggest thing for me was, how do I know what to destroy and what not to destroy? Because if you have a Masterpiece, that's like that's not trap immune, and you destroy a trap with your heritage or something, like that's pretty unfortunate. So I like this card a lot. I sided in going first against a lot of different matchups, but it's mainly for the mirror match, just so that you know what to activate against and what not to activate against. So like the knowledge of their hand is pretty good. The one thing is though that the ruling was kind of the way I thought it was ruled was that they get their card back on the next turn, but it's actually just on the same turn. Even after learning that though, I didn't really care that much because by that point I probably had dealt with their field, and if they get that card back, like whatever, it's not really a big deal. So this can be like a pretty good blowout. It's not bad against True Draco Zoos as well, because the same thing, like you find out what's in their hand, find out what should be destroyed or not destroyed, and take out the one card that could have maybe dealt with you. So this card I've been liking a little bit more than Deflector, just because like even with Deflector is good, but then like if they have like a True King return or a True King or a True Draco Apocalypse, like they're just gonna set it and play on your turn anyway. Like, and then your Deflector did not that much. It's not like Diagram costs them anything to activate. Like there's no targeting, or it's not destruction for cost. So the Deflectors are okay, but this has been a lot better. So I recommend it. I don't like it at 3 though, because mid to late game it's not really ideal to draw, but if you draw it in your opening hand, like it's really really good. And then my spicy tech, just for like Crystal Wing and some other indestructible cards, is the Book of Eclipse. I found that in testing, the best way to get out the Crystal Wing was a Book of Moon, and I couldn't play 2 Book of Moon in TCG, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just play Book of Eclipse. I'm still testing this, but it's like really easy to just like set everything face down, and then so the Dryadens won't interrupt you, and like certain and that Crystal Wing won't interrupt you, and then just destroy it with like a True King trap or something, because any linger effects would dissolve once you flip it down. So this has been like kind of good and kind of bad, but it's just there for spice. The second Chalice, it's good against a lot of decks, but it's mainly just for Zoos going second. And same thing with the Diagram. Like activating the diagram, and then as Chainlink 1, they'll go Trident Chainlink 2, and then you go Chalice Chainlink 3 to negate the Trident, and it'll go 3, negate, 2, resolve without effect, and then 1, you can just destroy your own Chalice to search, which is probably my favorite thing to do when you have these 2 cards in your opening. So this card I definitely, I like it at 2. I wish I could main 2, it just isn't room, so I sided it for now. And for dinos, you know, Macrocosmos, Defissure, Soul Drain, pretty self-explanatory. Just taking away that graveyard against dinos is usually pretty effective. And then at the worst case, if you need to get rid of this stuff, just tribute it away with Masterpiece. So it's nice and easy. So like it really works well in this deck. And a card that I know a lot of people play in the main deck, I only side 1, is Monarch's Erupt. The reason I don't main this though is because I like this a lot basically against zoos only. If it's like if I run into True Draco or invoke True Draco, this card like does almost nothing. Or even True Draco Zoo, this card, like the Masterpiece will just get rid of this, like their Masterpiece will, and then they'll just play zoos normally. Like I really didn't like this in the main deck that much because it just adds bricks sometimes for like no real reason. So I do side it though because against pure zoo, it's just nuts. It's like D-barrier forever. And then Imperial Order, I tried maining this and I didn't really like it because I think there's something like 23 spells in here, so you actually sometimes lose to your own Imperial Order, which, you know, kind of sucks. And like you shouldn't lose to it if you time it correctly, but like sometimes you're forced to play it too soon and then you just end up like if there's this and like a Mask of Restrict on board, like you're gonna lose like pretty much for sure. So I don't know, I didn't really like this card unless I knew I was going first. And then just to round off the going second cards, is Regeki and Double Dark Hole because, you know, monsters suck, so why not just get rid of them. I like these cards a lot. The only other cards I'd maybe take out is maybe the Dark Holes to put in barriers. But I find like going first, like you almost don't even have to side in this deck. Like the deck is amazing going first, so I really want to focus on going second cards. So that's why I went with the Dark Holes over the barriers. And then another card I really wanted to test, I haven't been testing it, is Rivalry of the Warlords. So if you know, all your guys are worms other than Maxi, which is never going to be on the field anyway. So this is like a kind of a funny card against like dinos or something. Like just wait till they bring out like a Yang Zing or something, and it kind of like fucks up their board. The thing is though, like against the mirror match, like pure True Dracos, it's not really ideal. But yeah, I don't know. This is if you guys just want to like troll around like this, and the Book of Eclipse are pretty funny. So, and you never know, like sometimes it's kind of a blowout in their own way. So I like those a lot. Probably the only thing I would change is, yeah, just maybe try to play the barriers. If I was like at a regional and not at locals, I'd probably take out this, just have a barrier, and maybe one of these for a second barrier. I'm not too sure because that's the only other card that I wish I could make room for. Otherwise, that's a side deck. So that's my True Draco Demise deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions or requests for some other profiles you want to see, let us know in the comments below, and hopefully we can help you out. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. True Draco Demise deck profile. I like this deck a lot. It's very skillful.
This is a good joke.